The stars above Solara Prime shimmered like frozen sparks, distant and indifferent. Commander Elena Rourke stood at the edge of the command platform, her arms folded tightly across her chest as if to shield herself from the news she was about to deliver. Below her, thousands of soldiers bustled through the rallying yard, unaware that by official decree, they were about to lose a war. She inhaled slowly. The briefing room behind her buzzed with low conversations, holographic maps blinking with enemy advances. Rourke's second-in-command, Lieutenant Adrian Voss, leaned against a console, studying her with narrowed eyes. He was sharp, quick-tempered, and dangerously loyal, a combination Rourke valued more than any regulation ever could. "The Council has made its decision," she said finally, voice steady despite the bile rising in her throat. "We're going to surrender." A murmur ran through the senior officers. Voss straightened, his jaw clenching. "They think giving up is survival," he snapped, low enough that only she could hear. "Have they forgotten who we are?" Rourke's lips twisted into a humorless smile. "They haven't forgotten. They're counting on the Zelthar forgetting." The Zelthar Dominion had appeared on humanity's borders a mere decade ago, an empire of cold efficiency and overwhelming force. Systems fell like dominoes. Treaties were burned, planets gutted. They were ruthless, but they were also proud. Arrogance, Rourke thought, was a weapon sharp enough to slit a throat if used properly. "We're giving them the illusion," she continued. "They think they've crushed us, and we'll let them believe it, just long enough." The murmurs gave way to silence, tension coiling in the air. Colonel Sad, a heavy-set veteran with shrapnel scars snaking across his face, grunted. "And while they're celebrating, we sharpen the knife." "Exactly," Rourke said. "We play dead. Let them lower their guard." Across the room, the central holomap shifted, projecting the latest intel. Red splotches, Zelthar-held territories, blotted the star field like infections. Humanity's holdings were withering by the hour. It wasn't an illusion that they were losing. It was a fact. But facts could be rearranged. Perceptions could be weaponized. A sharp tone sounded as the planetary alert went out. A transmission from the Zelthar flagship blinked into existence, a towering figure cloaked in regal crimson armor. "Lord Commander Vrax." His voice slithered through the air, rich with contempt. "Humans, you have fought with admirable desperation. It ends now. Lay down your arms. Acknowledge your inferiority. You will find mercy." Voss made a rude gesture at the hologram. Some chuckled grimly, but Rourke only watched, measuring. Vrax wasn't speaking to negotiate, he was speaking to gloat. He believed humanity broken. That belief was the fulcrum they would use to overturn him. She tapped her comlink. "Patch me through." A click of confirmation. "This is Commander Rourke," she said. "In accordance with the Council's directive, we acknowledge your terms. We will initiate surrender protocols effective immediately." The words tasted like ash. Around her, the officers stiffened, swallowing their anger. Voss looked as if he might explode. Vrax inclined his massive head, smugness radiating from every line of his armored body. "Wise," he purred. "We will send ships to manage your transition." The transmission cut. In the silence that followed, Rourke turned to her officers. Her voice hardened into steel. "Begin the surrender operation. Evacuate non-essential personnel. Initiate blackout contingency across all outposts." Sad barked orders into his wrist. Lights dimmed across the command center. Data streams blinked out, hidden beneath layers of encrypted misdirection. Every move now had to be made beneath the surface, unseen, untraceable. Voss crossed to Rourke's side, voice low. "And if the Council gets cold feet? Then we remind them that survival isn't a right. It's a fight. One we intend to win." Across the sprawling cityscape beyond the base, humans bustled, hauling crates onto disguised freighters, retrofitting old shuttles into mobile weapon platforms. The air smelled of ozone and sweat, the acrid perfume of desperation, but also determination. Rourke knew her people. They would not go quietly. Hidden deep in Solara Prime's catacombs, a new generation of AI-controlled drones hummed to life. Silent, invisible to most scans, lethal. Farther out in dead space, half a dozen phantom fleets powered up, their hulls coated in adaptive camo, waiting for the signal to strike. Everything humanity had built in secret for the past decade, everything they had hidden behind smoke and lies, was about to be unleashed. The Zelthar thought they had broken humanity's spine. They had only stiffened it. As night fell over Solara Prime, Rourke stood once more beneath the stars. This world might fall. Others might burn. It did not matter. Their spirit was not bound to soil or sky, it lived in the blood and the bone and the fire in the human soul. Let the Zelthar believe they had won. By the time they realized the truth, it would already be too late. The Zelthar flagship, Oblivion's Crown, drifted in low orbit over Solara Prime, a monstrous silhouette against the dying light of the planet below. Within its crystalline halls, Lord Commander Vrax strode through the command deck, his armored boots clicking against the polished obsidian floor. Officers knelt as he passed, their armor adorned with gleaming medals won from countless conquests. Vrax barely spared them a glance. His thoughts were occupied with the taste of victory, sweet and inevitable. The humans had knelt, as he knew they must. Their defiance had been stubborn, almost admirable, but in the end, they had succumbed to the same truth as all lesser species: strength ruled. Submission was the natural order. Behind him, strategist Karvek approached, his voice cautious. The humans request permission to conduct ceremonial rites of surrender on the surface. They claim it is custom. Vrax's mandibles twitched with amusement. Let them have their pageantry. The conquered deserve one final delusion. Karvek hesitated, antennae flickering uneasily. There are anomalies, my lord. Communication blackouts. Empty cities. Deliberate sensor obstructions. Vrax turned, his red eyes gleaming. Fear and disorder. Hallmarks of a defeated enemy. They pose no threat. If Karvek disagreed, he wisely said nothing. Across the stars, unseen by the Zelthar, humanity's hidden hand began to tighten around their throats. Deep within the Kuiper expanse, Ghost Captain Vega observed through the polarized glass of her stealth cruiser. Her ship, Silent Requiem, floated among the shattered remnants of dead worlds, completely invisible to even the most sophisticated scans. Her crew moved with silent precision, every action practiced 1,000 times over. A tap on the console brought up the targeting grid, Zelthar supply convoys, ripe for the taking. She smiled thinly. It was time to bleed them dry. Begin Phantom Protocol, Vega ordered, voice calm as a blade. Tiny, silent drones detached from Silent Requiem, slipping through the blackness like whispers. Across the sector, dozens of similar deployments began. Infiltration teams breaching Zelthar outposts, AI viruses worming into enemy command systems, silent assassinations striking at key offices. Humanity wasn't launching a conventional war. They were orchestrating a systemic collapse. Meanwhile, on the fractured moon of Arcanus, Lieutenant Adrian Voss led a cadre of shadow operatives through the derelict mining tunnels. Dust swirled under their boots, the air thick with decay. At his side moved Cypher, a former intelligence specialist whose reputation for creative destruction was legend even among the hardened. They won't see this coming, Cypher said, voice muffled behind his mask as he set the last of the plasma charges. Voss checked his chrono. 2 minutes until detonation. Good. When the ground starts to fall out from under them, I want them to wonder how they ever thought they'd won. Overhead, Zelthar patrol ships moved obliviously through the upper atmosphere, confident in their dominance. They didn't notice the flickering signals in their comms array, didn't question the false data streams guiding them away from critical targets. As the countdown ticked lower, Voss signaled his team to retreat. They melted into the shadows just as the charges ignited in a symphony of fire and collapse. The surface buckled, swallowing Zelthar supply depots, communications hubs, and reinforcement platforms. One moon crippled, dozens of others to follow. Panic began to ripple through the Zelthar ranks. Reports filtered up to Vrax aboard the Oblivion's Crown. sabotage, unexplained fleet disappearances, colonies going dark. Still, he refused to accept the possibility that humans could orchestrate such precision. "This is desperation," he barked to Karvek. "Scattered acts of madness. Nothing more." But even as he spoke, the tide was shifting. On the bridge of the silent Requiem, Vega received the coded confirmation: Operation Revenant was active. Across human space, phantom fleets emerged from their hidden strongholds, hull forms blooming like dark flowers against the void. Coated in reactive armor and equipped with AI pilots programmed for ruthless efficiency, they fell upon the scattered Zelthar fleets with clinical brutality. Battle reports were chaos incarnate. Entire Zelthar squadrons vanished, wiped out without warning. Listening posts crumbled. Strategic outposts erupted into sudden flames. And through it all, humanity said nothing, no declarations of war, no grand speeches. Only silent, calculated annihilation. At Solara Prime, Rourke watched from the fortified command bunker as the enemy's coordination faltered. Static filled Zelthar transmissions. Their ground forces began withdrawing, confused and leaderless. She turned to the transmission officer. "Send the message." A heartbeat later, every Zelthar vessel across the sector received a single broadcast. No visual, only a voice, calm, cold, undeniably human. "You thought we surrendered. We let you think you won. Now, you lose everything." The message looped, embedding itself in every open channel, an echo of doom the Zelthar could not silence. Inside the Oblivion's crown, Vrax watched as system after system winked out from the strategic displays. Rage flared within him, a fury hotter than any star, but beneath it, fear stirred. He had not beaten the humans. He had walked blindly into their trap. Across the galaxy, a storm was rising, and its eye was human. The first wave of the human counteroffensive struck with a precision that bordered on cruelty. Entire Zelthar battalions found themselves isolated, supply lines severed, reinforcement corridors obliterated. Above the burning cities of Solara Prime, human dreadnoughts, long hidden in asteroid fields and abandoned mining belts, decloaked with a predatory grace. The once proud Dominion forces scattered like startled insects, their formations crumbling under the hammer of humanity's wrath. Commander Elena Rourke paced the forward observation deck of the flagship Valus Edge, every fiber of her body thrumming with restrained fury. She watched without flinching as the feed displayed another Zelthar battleship erupting into a silent bloom of fire in the void. At her side, Lieutenant Adrian Voss murmured updates, each one confirming what Rourke already knew. The Zelthar weren't retreating, they were running. "Status on Arcanus?" she asked without turning. "Secured. Minimal losses." Voss's team held the tunnels longer than expected. Sabotaged half their armored columns before the final sweep. Rourke permitted herself a rare nod of satisfaction. Every victory, every reclaimed outpost, was a blade twisting deeper into the Dominion's gut. Still, she knew better than to believe this was over. The Zelthar were dangerous even in death throes. Across the sector, Ghost Captain Vega led a brutal series of flanking strikes, each one more devastating than the last. Her ships moved like phantoms, hitting supply depots and retreat corridors before melting back into darkness. To the Zelthar, it must have seemed as if humanity had become the very void itself, unknowable, relentless, impossible to strike. On the bridge of her vessel, Silent Requiem, Vega traced the final assault patterns across a holomap. Her fingers tapped a staccato rhythm against the console, eyes narrowing. "They are fracturing," she said, mostly to herself. "We don't just destroy them. We humiliate them. Make the others think the Zelthar are weak." Her second-in-command, a wiry man named Harlan, flashed a grin. "A legend dies harder than a fleet. Not if you kill both at once." Meanwhile, within the heart of the crumbling Dominion, Vrax fought to hold what scraps of power he could still command. His communications network, once a gleaming testament to the efficiency of the Zelthar, had become a labyrinth of contradictory orders, falsified reports, and phantom units. His own admirals questioned him in whispers, Some had already broken ranks, seeking deals with the humans or other opportunistic species that smelled blood on the wind. In desperation, Vrax called a summit, summoning what loyalists remained to the fortress world of Kazan. He intended to rally them, to forge a final defense. It was a mistake. Cypher stood in the upper gallery of Kazan's great hall, cloaked in adaptive camo, a plasma rifle steady in his hands. Beside him crouched two operatives from Voss's unit, their weapons primed. As Vrax thundered out hollow proclamations of vengeance and destiny, Cypher sighted down his scope. A single shot, surgically placed, vaporized the Dominion's supreme strategist in mid-sentence. Panic erupted. Betrayal spread faster than any disease. Across the galaxy, Rourke issued the final phase command. Human forces surged forward, pressing into the disorganized, leaderless remnants of the Zelthar. No quarter was given. None was asked. The victory, when it came, was absolute. Weeks later, as reconstruction efforts began on the battered human worlds, Rourke stood atop the parapets of New Solara's government complex. The city stretched below her, scarred but stubborn, already rebuilding with a speed that defied despair. Above, the human fleet glittered like a new constellation, a silent reminder to the stars of what had been won, and at what cost. Voss approached, a datapad tucked under his arm. "Reports from the outer colonies," he said. "All clear. Zelthar resistance is gone. Scattered survivors turning on each other. Some are offering unconditional surrender." Rourke took the pad, scanning it quickly. Her expression remained hard. "No mercy," she said. "Let the galaxy remember. We didn't survive by kindness. We survived by making ourselves impossible to conquer." A low murmur of agreement passed between them. Later that night, a signal was broadcast from every human-controlled outpost, a message carried on every wavelength, translated into every tongue. "This is humanity. We do not bow. We do not forget. We do not forgive." Across alien worlds, leaders watched and trembled. The Zelthar had been a monster lurking in the dark. Humanity had proven itself a greater one. Far from the bustling cities, on a remote observation deck overlooking the twilight plains of Solara Prime, Rourke allowed herself a rare moment of quiet. She gazed up at the endless stars, her reflection a ghost on the glass. In the distance, the wreckage of the Oblivion's crown still smoldered in low orbit, a silent tomb for those who had underestimated what it meant to push humanity too far. A whisper of wind stirred the flags along the parapet, tattered banners that had flown through both defeat and victory. Rourke's voice, soft and certain, broke the stillness. "Next time," she said, "they'll think twice." And somewhere beyond those stars, the next empire already shuddered at the thought. Long after the last Zelthar warship had fallen silent and the celebration banners had been folded away, the true weight of victory began to settle. Humanity had survived the Dominion, had shattered the empire that once seemed invincible, but survival was never without cost. Beneath the surface of triumph, fissures formed, hairline cracks that spoke of battles still to come. Commander Elena Rourke leaned against the balcony rail of the High Council chambers, surveying the assembly gathered below. Delegates from every surviving human world crowded the vast hall, their voices rising in tense debates that echoed through the vaulted ceilings. Unity, once forged in desperation, now frayed under the strain of old rivalries and new ambitions. Voss stood nearby, his posture deceptively casual. Only those who knew him could see the alertness in his eyes, the way his hand hovered near the pistol at his hip. Old wars bred new enemies, and victory, Rourke knew, often birthed dangerous opportunists. "They are dividing faster than the Zelthar ever could," Voss muttered under his breath. Rourke didn't look at him. Her gaze was locked on the central dais, where Governor Hale of New Solara was thundering about expanded military authority. His words met with roars of approval and scattered shouts of dissent. Power was a narcotic, and humanity, fresh from tasting it, was already hungry for more. "Victory doesn't teach peace," Rourke said quietly. "It teaches conquest." Voss's mouth twisted in a grim smile. "Maybe that's who we are now." Across the room, Ghost Captain Vega watched from the shadows, dressed in plain civilian garb that did little to soften the lethal sharpness of her presence. She had returned from the front lines at Rourke's request, though part of her had wanted to stay adrift among the stars, away from the political rut beginning to seep into the heart of their hard-won civilization. Nearby, Cypher lounged against a marble pillar, his eyes scanning the room with practiced detachment. No orders yet, but his fingers tapped a restless rhythm against his thigh, already sensing the potential for bloodshed. A motion passed through the assembly, a narrow margin granting the Council emergency powers to oversee planetary militarization efforts. Cheers erupted, but Rourke remained silent, feeling a coldness bloom in her chest. What had begun as a fight for survival was quickly mutating into something darker, something less defensible. After the session adjourned, Rourke gathered her team in a secure chamber deep beneath the council building. The room was bare, stone walls, a single table, no surveillance equipment. Trust was a rare and valuable commodity now, and she only trusted those who had bled beside her. "We didn't win to become what we destroyed," she said without preamble. "If we allow fear to dictate our future, we become the next empire others will rise to resist." Voss leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "You think they'll listen to reason?" "They'll listen if the alternative is worse," Vega said darkly. Cypher grinned, a feral expression. "Chaos is always persuasive." Rourke tapped a few commands into the datapad before her. A series of classified files illuminated the tabletop, evidence of secret projects already underway, clandestine fleets, black site weapon developments, surveillance initiatives aimed not at alien threats, but at humanity itself. "They are preparing for an enemy," Rourke said. "But they are looking inward." Voss's jaw tightened. "Another civil war?" Rourke shook her head. "Not if we move first. We guide them back to what matters, survival, not domination. Exploration, not extermination." "And if they resist?" Vega asked, voice low. Rourke looked around the table, meeting each gaze in turn. These were the people who had fought alongside her against impossible odds, who understood the weight of the choices she now had to make. "Then we remind them," she said, voice steady, "what it feels like to face an enemy who refuses to lose." Across the stars, whispers of humanity's resurgence had already begun to stir ancient powers from their long slumber. Worlds untouched by Zelthar conquest watched with wary eyes, some preparing embassies, others sharpening their blades. Humanity's new reputation preceded them, ruthless, resilient, utterly unbreakable. Rourke understood the danger. A universe that feared humanity would eventually seek to destroy it. The Council wanted to turn that fear into dominance. She would turn it into survival. In the darkness beyond Solara Prime, Vega's hidden fleets began moving again, not in conquest, but as silent guardians, unseen and unfettered by politics. Cypher and his operatives spread like seeds in the wind, embedding themselves where resistance to authoritarianism could be kindled into rebellion if needed. And Rourke herself would walk both worlds, the official and the hidden, the politician and the warrior, the shield and, if necessary, the sword. Above the quiet plains of Solara, the stars burned cold and brilliant. Humanity's future was written not in treaties or banners, but in the will of those unwilling to surrender what made them human, the refusal to bow, to break, to become the very monsters they had once fought against. Somewhere beyond those glittering lights, unseen eyes watched and waited. This time, Rourke vowed, humanity would be ready, not to conquer, but to endure. And if the stars demanded war again, they would learn the oldest truth of all. Victory wasn't the end. It was only the beginning.